Quick postmortem on WrestleMania Night 1, which on the whole I really enjoyed. Everything was built around the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin to WrestleMania in Texas. Kevin Owens inviting him to be on the KO show. They've been playing kind of coy as far as exactly what Austin would be doing. Ever since Austin in that video, remember he said, I don't care if it's a match, I don't care if it's a fight, I don't care if it's a KO show. They were keeping things open. But I still said, until I see him in the ring, either in his tights or in his knee braces, and there's a referee and the bell rings, I will not believe it. Because for so many times over the years, we have been teased with the idea maybe Austin's going to come back. You know, the biggest tease being the video game stuff years ago with him and CM Punk, which was done independent of WWE creative. But that got a lot of people hoping that maybe we were going to get Austin and Punk, and then it didn't happen. Which is too bad, because he would have been 10 years younger. 10 or 11 years younger than he was last night had he come back for that match. But there have been little, pockets of hope, but Austin has held out. Longer than most. Shawn Michaels was another one. He held out longer than most. Had seemingly the ideal retirement going out against probably his favorite opponent in the main event of WrestleMania. Got that nice send-off. Even he couldn't help himself, and he had to come back because he thought it would be fun. So he came back in Saudi Arabia, and that turned out to be a disaster. Even though he was the one who looked the best in that match, it turned out to be a disaster. But Stone Cold had his last match in 2003. Almost 20 years have gone by. He was in his late 30s when he wrestled The Rock. And now he's 57 years old. Still keeps himself in good shape, but he is 57 years old and hasn't had a match in so long. It was hard for me to wrap my head around the idea that now, all of a sudden, he would come back for a match. It's not like WrestleMania hasn't been in Texas before. He was at that WrestleMania, and he did get physical, but he didn't have a match. But there he was last night, coming out, knee braces on, jean shorts, Austin 316 shirt. Kevin Owens says, I got to be honest with you. I didn't get you here to talk to you. I got you here because I wanted you in a match. I wanted to fight you. I want you in a no-holds-barred match. And Austin said, get a referee out here. And when they rang the bell, I'm telling you, it was like teenage Solomonster was back all over again. It was one of those moments I honestly never thought that I would see. Enough time had gone by that I had convinced myself that this simply was not going to happen. It was off the table. But there he was. Not only did the bell ring and they have a match, they had a real match. I mean, it went almost 15 minutes. They brawled all over the building, into the crowd. Austin took fucking bumps on the concrete floor. He got suplexed on the concrete. Guy's a crazy man. I think he watched Sting and he said, hey, if this man can do it, then why not me? Sting's out there doing balcony dives every month. It's crazy. So he's out there and he's taking bumps, and I give all the credit in the world to Kevin Owens. Austin held his own, but Kevin Owens was bumping his ass off last night. Kevin Owens, it was as if he was wrestling himself. I made that comment on the stream, and that wasn't meant to as a slight on Steve Austin. But there was a bump early in the match in the ring where he whipped Owens into the corner, and Owens took this bump where he kind of jumped up and he bounced off the buckles and fell down. It almost looked like he powerbombed himself. So when I say it looks like he was wrestling himself, he really did look like he was out there wrestling himself. He was going above and beyond. Because he had to be the happiest man in the world, to be in the ring with somebody who he has gone on record before as saying he grew up a huge fan of. He met when he was younger. Austin gave him some great career advice. He was a huge Stone Cold mark. So for him to be the man, not Punk, not anybody else, for him to be the man to bring this man out of retirement and have a main event match with him at WrestleMania. Kevin Steen got his WrestleMania main event last night. He had to be the happiest man in the world. You have people online saying, oh, Owens is buried. These people don't have a fucking functioning brain cell in their head. If you think that that's what happened last night. I'm sure he was more than happy to go out there and eat a stunner and take the pin. Because it was the biggest moment of his entire career. It was bigger than any match he's ever been in. Any match in Ring of Honor, any match in WWE, any championship he's ever held, I would have to think that he would agree. That moment he got last night, being trusted in there, in a match with a man who hasn't wrestled in 19 years, a man he looked up to like that in that spot. is going to be at the top of his resume when he goes into the Hall of Fame one day. The only thing missing, and I said this on Twitter, the only thing missing, I know he's lost a few steps, but the only thing missing on commentary was Jim Ross. That's the only thing that would have made this complete, is having Jim Ross just wigging out on commentary for Stone Cold one last time. But I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was absolutely the right decision to put that on last. Nothing else, especially if they were going to have a match, absolutely nothing else could have gone on after that match. It would have been just absolute instant death for anything that would have gone on after that. There was no following Stone Cold in his last match in Texas. And I do believe and I do hope that it is his last match. You know, he looked good, but he was noticeably slower at the beginning of the match, and he seemed to pick up steam as the match went on. He was getting more comfortable with himself. Maybe he took some bumps and said, all right, I haven't fallen apart. I feel okay. I say it was the beers, because he kept drinking beers throughout the entire match. Now, he spit most of it out, but he probably drank 24 of those American lagers that he just came out with. The beer seemed to be giving him more strength and energy as the match went on, because he got a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and he was, looking better than he did at the beginning when he looked very sluggish. So I'm telling you, it was the beer. The beer is what gave him the strength to soldier on. And then he hits the stunner, 1, 2, 3. It gives everybody the happy go-home moment at the end of the night. And then the stunner to Byron Saxton, who took this big over-exaggerated bump. Not quite Scott Hall level or The Rock, but it was pretty good. But a great moment, especially if you grew up a fan of Austin and you remember his matches and his brawls. He had a lot of those brawls where he would brawl into the crowd back in the Attitude Era. If you remember that, for a few minutes last night, you were transported back to that time, and it was a lot of fun.